Let's see. Anybody got any questions as we get started?
Oh, you were going to have suggestions for us?
For
On
your words?
no,
Ye-
not the words on our, when we talked about ourselves.
I had a couple of thoughts, and I forgot my notebook. So I'll grab my notebook on the break, and then we'll go over just a couple of things. But I thought what was shared was fantastic. And so we really got a good grip on, I feel, how to talk about ourselves and how to sort of introduce ourselves. And so I want to move us through the weather chapter, and then we get into feelings and body parts, and then we get into sort of, I can't remember, I think it's coming and going, and then also kinship. And those are really important because then that allows us to start talking about, achshagun and things like that. And it just sort of opens up the amount of things that we can sort of talk about. So um, not a whole lot of direct sort of things. I made a couple of notes of just some things that we might sort of think about. And with Tlingit, there's a couple of things where, like, when we talk about, this was kind of fun. We were doing this in the advanced Tlingit, was just sort of coming and going. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but so you can walk, and so there's basically command forms, perfective and imperfective are very common. So like go, went, will go is how these work. And so I guess we'll just do them kind of fast, and we'll just say to go there. And then when you learn how to do this, the ah part, you can substitute a noun there. So you could say hun dakahiti de nagu, way de nagu, hit de nagu, ne de nagu. So then you can just learn how to substitute different nouns in there for where you're telling them to go, right? Dagi and kawu ne de wugu, which would be go to HE double hockey sticks. So we'll just say the first one. So the command ade nagu, ade nagu. Then she or he went there. Ade wugud, ade wugud, ade kakwagud, ade kakwagud. She or he will go there. And so then what we'll see is this is to walk, and this is for one person. So Tlingit always it just likes to put things in these categories. So there's the type of motion, and then if there's more than one person, a motion, there's usually be a different verb. The verb will have to change, right? And so structurally it changes kind of quite a bit. So like de haswu at would be they went there. So you see like it goes from gut to at. Then we can run. We won't do this one. Then we could drive. So this one's maybe a little more useful. So that again, so drive to the restaurant. Drive to church. So then this one, ade nakuch, ade wukuch. Adewukuch. Adekakwakuch. Adekakwakuch. And I need a little yak as well, because it's the same as a boat. Going in a boat is the same as going in a car. So you're going to go on the ferry, that would be, kakwakuch. Then there's swimming for people, and the verb is to slap, because you slap the water. There's climbing, which would be climbing up a net or a rope. It would be climbing up a tree. It would be climbing up the steep part of a mountain, because you have to start using all fours and sort of going up. There's crawling, which is usually babies, but maybe someone's got to crawl somewhere. I don't know. I ain't judging. And then there's flying. And so this would be in an airplane, typically, or like a giant paper airplane, I guess. Uh, and then I thought of this because when you say to move, like moving residence, there's three ways to move. And so this was the other thing to say, I moved there. This is the one to say, wusadak, usually means the clan separated and part of them left, probably forever. Right? So this is the verb you'd use for, I ain't ever coming back. So like when we write our Tlingit soap opera, this will be a good one for someone to use, right? This is the breakup verb, you know. But this is also like sometimes the clan, and it doesn't have to be a big, the clan got into a big fight, but it's sort of like, that's when we left that place and we became someone else, right? And so this is the verb they would use for that, especially as we talk about these big migrations. There was this big group, then they split into these smaller groups. This would be the verb that we would use for that. And it really means like we no longer are the people of that one place. And so it's got kind of a finality to it. This one is to move temporarily, and the verb root means to carry a bunch of stick-like objects, because you would take the sides off of the big clan houses and you would go build yourself a fish camp. Then you would return them. So that's what this one, and so when we say Anchqaltsu for the name of the village right over here, we can hear that su in there. And we say Kehas Joshitsu, they raise their hands, because hands are stick-like things, and if they go plural, it's su, and if it's singular, it's sak. And so these are just like little things that we'll just sort of note, like, and then it's like all these things lead to sometimes other things. And then wushagat means where this is the one that people would commonly use today to say like I lived in San Francisco and then I moved to New Orleans, and it would be this one. And the verb root for this is a house post, because you've taken the house post and we're going to go set it somewhere. And so it's really neat to think about how these migrating verbs sort of work. But as we talk about our life history, sometimes we got to sort of figure out which one we're, and this is the most common one to use if you're talking about, and then my family, we went here, and then I was raised here, and then we went there. And so it's a pretty fun one to learn how to use. And then I had a question here. Would it be okay to email you a sound clip of my intro so I could see? Yeah, you can always send me audio clips if you want to, if you're looking for some direct feedback. You say, I want to make sure I get this right for whatever purpose. Feel free to email and I can listen to it and tell you if there's specific areas, you know. Because typically, I'm a little cautious on giving a lot of feedback. I like to just sort of, we just work on stuff, and I believe that people, as they learn more, self-correcting is a really powerful way of doing things. There might be some cases where we're collectively working on something. I keep hearing a certain sound, like if you have a canoe, it's yak. But sometimes when we say yak or do wasak, we end up saying yauk. If you round too soon, you get this ow sound in it. And so sometimes, you know, and every now and then we'll talk about stuff, but yeah. Uh, yeah, Hishwa sa oti. Oh, that's right. Autagan. Well, you could just go right now, too. Guashi tu agesigu. Because if anybody didn't go on Tuesday, you should probably.
To. Are you there? I went like muted.
Yeah.
So I this is like mandatory.
Oh, well, it's just something we all did, and it's just.
I mean, I don't know if I like did this. I mean, okay, so I wrote it up like while I'm at work, right? I'm trying to like get it all done, so I have my little paragraph. But I'm pretty sure I didn't like put some of it right, especially going through the verb dictionary and like trying to say like what I like to do. and just kind of trying to wing it because not all the sentences made sense of like what I wanted to say. So I just hope that it's right.
Yeah, we were so like to frame it, we're just sharing some things about ourselves. It's more to get to know one another than to sort of meet any type of assignment. And so, and then it'll also, it helps me to see what kinds of things do we collectively want to learn how to say. And then we can talk about maybe the ways to say these things in Tlingit because they might be kind of different. And like, so some things like if people want to say, I love ice cream, it gets a little complicated as far as how you would say that and would you say that and why would you say that? And sometimes we have to just realize that languages just communicate different things, and not that we're putting a banish, we're not banning liking ice cream or anything like that, but there might be some things where we just figure out how to say that. So no
All
pressure.
right. Well, I can give it a shot. Like, what's the worst that could happen? So, just don't set your expectations too high. Okay. Sid Yuchat Duasak, white salmon cooked, cook, Jesus, cook ziti ka nuskadu shu ka shuwu tak shunak hik ka kitchkant quad tlitsu Tleka ka dakadushu tak ayachat Tle shawat chatsiti kaku adatki Tlingit city kuatsa Yesh aya hastu shakak city Ak yananak shakahadi aya kikat has khasikan kua at kahek ak tuasagu ka at jikik ka at wush kaya klinik ka at shuk ka at siku ka sheku kaseku to Tlingit Shtuchotu. So I was trying to say, my name is Sid. I was born in White Salmon, but I moved to Ketchikan 8.5 years ago. I'm 27 years old. I'm a white woman. However, my maternal uncle's children are Tlingit. They are primarily of the Raven moiety. My family is crazy, but at least I love them sometimes. I love to run and argue and laugh and learn, and also the color orange. I'm learning Tlingit.
Goodness, sheesh. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, another way to say your age is achkatagu. So you just say the number and then awe achkatagu. So that one's actually there's a short way to say that. And then if you wanted to, if it was safe to do so, and you wanted to ask someone, Kunsoe ikatagu, how many are your years, right? Katak is what it comes from. So tak is a winter or a year. Katagu, my age. And so, and these are when we get to kinship too, it's really fun because kinship in Tlingit is really interesting because it can change based on yeah, that was wonderful. It could change based on your personal relationship as well. So there are people who could be different clans, but then they end up picking a kinship term because they're becoming super, super close friends to the point where they feel like they're relatives. The common way would be two people of the same moiety and the same gender who become very close, and they don't even have to be the same gender, but then they pick like a sibling term. But if they are the same gender, like here's two people and they become really good friends, and then one of them decides to try out a kinship term just to see are we there yet, and they'll say goodness cheesh keek, and then the other one might say ha Kunsa Ekatag, how old are you? Because then they might say, you're the keek, you're the young one, right? So the young one gets bossed around. So I remember I have a friend and he called me keek and I asked him and he was younger than me. I was like, you're the keek now. So then I was making them make me coffee. I'm just kidding. Um, Anybody else not have a chance to go, or does anybody have any other questions? And I'll tell you what the plan is today. Okay. Okay. Always feel free to ask questions. Some of you have sent some questions through email. Sometimes I remember to answer them right away. Sometimes I like to bring them to the class because other folks might have the same questions. So anyways, let's move to, I got two things, and I guess we can pick which ones that we want to do. I sent out an email shortly before class with our list of names on there, and then it has all the email addresses that I have for everybody in the class. So if you didn't get it, let me know so that I can make sure to add you to the, I don't have any kind of fancy email list. It's just an email message with everybody's email on it. I can add you to the list. And so I guess the one thing I should add on the list is whose email is it, because some of them, it might say Kanata 1943 or whatever, and that might be somebody's email, and like, I don't know who that is. And so I guess that's the next step for me, is to add that information to the table. So just check your email. If you didn't get it, let me know. I'm still building the list of words. I'm moving very slow, but I will have it on Tuesday. And there's some, if I have questions, I'll probably email you yours directly over the weekend and say, hey, let's pick something from here, let's pick something from there. I know some, you had some weaving terms, and I might have to talk to Qanayoti and see if she has thoughts on the weaving terms, like add two more. It's, and those are really interesting concepts in Tlingit that as we use the language more, we're sort of encountering them. So someone had asked me, like, how do you make one more set, like, someone who's seining, right? And then so it seems to me that the pattern is suk, verb, and then a number with dahin. So klei dahin is once, dak dahin is twice. So I might say suk kashi dak dahin. Sing it again, sing it more times, sing it two more times, basically. Let's see. Okay. Anya nachtla. I will send that out to you on the break. Oh, okay. Yeah, so some folks are going to Elders and Youth Conference, Qoneyati and Shkeki. I will be there Tuesday evening through Thursday evening, but we'll have class here Tuesday, but not Thursday. I'll be in Anchorage. And that's next week.
This list of names, were you going to pair us up?
Yeah, so I'll do that. I'll just I'll have you guys paired off by the weekend, or sometime over the weekend. So I'll just say, okay, you two. And the reason why you're pairing off is because we're not going to have class 7 days from now. There'll be no class. So don't come here. Come here on Tuesday, but not on Thursday. And then I'll instead give you a project. And so your project is going to be, I'm going to pair you up with somebody, and you're going to make a short dialogue. The key being short, and the other key being you don't have to make everything up. So you don't go for stuff that nobody has documented how to say that stuff yet, right? Like, okay, chop these 6 onions and then put the small pieces in. Like, don't go for easy, right? We're not translating poetry. We're not writing big fancy scripts right now. We're just doing some fun stuff. I think maybe Tuesday, I'll show you guys. Has anybody not seen the Let's Learn Tlingit, and it's spelled Clinket videos? Has anybody? Okay, we're going to have to watch one right now because of how epic these things are. So the key is you have to learn You have to spell Tlingit the way that they did, which I think is Clincket. Um, so this is a series of videos that were done as part of the Juneau Indian Studies program, as far as I know, here in Juneau. Oops. And it's Johnny Marks and I'm going to say Eva, their sister. And so the basic idea from what I understand of this project, and it's done in 1969, so it's kind of a creepy little puppet show. The Tlingit in it is fantastic, lights out, amazing. But the puppet show itself is just a little strange. It's kind of out of tune, little music box at the beginning. It takes about 2 minutes before anybody even says anything for the first episode. And but I think that's just how they made kids shows, maybe back then. And then, but what they did, I think they had these 10 episodes about these 10 sort of things where I believe the scripts were written in English and then given to speakers of Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian, and they made 3 different versions of this. The Tsimshian version was recently sort of found. This one was found first by Zach Jones working at Sea Alaska Heritage Institute. And then the State of Alaska Library put it on their website. So you can watch these 10 videos. And like I said, the Tlingit in it is really good, just in terms of the types of things that they're saying. I think that are useful, kind of household type of things and day-to-day conversational things. But I'm thinking like keep it easy. Like I really don't mind if you just look up. I don't want to have like a total reenactment of something that's already been done. But you could just find stuff and just say, okay, let's just create a little scenario and just say, hi, how are you? What's your name? It could be really easy. It does not have to be hard. My hope is you're going to put a little bit of, a couple hours into this, and then you'll have a chance to sort of maybe give each other a phone call, get to know each other maybe outside of class. You don't have to do a whole lot, but at least practice a couple times so that you feel pretty confident coming in. And if it takes us a little while before we get through them all, that's fine. But we'll try to start them not the Tuesday when after the AFN week. So that should be, I don't know, 10 days from now or something.
I was wondering if maybe I can be paired with someone who's also going to be at the conference, or we could just work on it there.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know how else I would figure that out.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna be doing it distance anyway, that's the whole point.
I know, I'm just thinking about it kind of busy conferences and stuff and understand.
Yeah. Juan Klein will be there. You can work with her. Be fun. Yeah. Okay. Ha?
Lasawe?
Christian in Ayayechekine. You'll work with Claire. Christian.
Claire. Okay. Ayake. Okie dokie.
Okay, okay. That's how we say it in my dialects. So let's watch. These videos are fun, and then think about whether you want to do the weather chapter first or you want to do that little squirrel again, because I think those are the 2 things that what I'd like to do today after this.
wasa'iyati,
Tamsa,
wasa'iyati,
wasayate,
suziye khatuwasa, wasa'iduwasa,
Jimmy Yehatuasa,
wasa'iyati Jimmy,
Kashwasa Susi,
oh Jimmy, Jimmy, kayade shakishan,
Tisawa, Aho, wasayate, Yatke, Jimmy Yehatuasa,
khatku'a awal suziye khatuwasa, wasa'iduwasa,
wasayidawasa,
wasa'iyati, shakaya khat,
Kawayahat,
oh Jimmy, stekataya wushkun prihaziti,
wasayate, Honke, wasayate,
keshwasa, keshwasa, keshwasa,
Jimmy Yehatuasa,
akhek yisa'ach adyatki, suziye khatuwasa,
Kawayahat,
kaf ayakhat,
Hatawa Kak Susi,
khatku'a awal, ahu, shakaya khat,
Wushun Prihaziti,
ayakakwe adyatki, tuteye yigaktisiti, kayade yuniski jumi, kayade shakisyan,
Tutsaye Gaftusati Akulke,
tuteye yigaktisiti akurki,
Okay. So there's a fun phrase in there that they say. Let's see, where should I put this? This up right here. Kayade shakilien. And that means wave to the people. So ka would be persons or people's, yade towards their face, and shakilien is kind of, it's like, it's kind of interesting because the two ways I've heard wave, like there's no actual real verb for waving a hand, so it's probably something we didn't do, but then we just sort of learn. It's sort of like when in some of those first contact with the Russian stories, they'll say, "Aka hastuk ek in hawuchuch." They summoned us over with their fingers. So that's probably something that Tlingits didn't do either. So when they sort of come up with a way to talk about the thing, it probably means they didn't really do the thing. Shakilien would be like shake it towards their face, the head of it, I guess. And so there's another way that I've heard it too, kayade yanaisne, which just means do it towards their faces. So anyways, it's really fun. There's 10 of them. They're great. The language in them are really great. There were little booklets that went along with it. I've only seen a couple of them. I had some students who went through and they wrote down everything that they said. But if you're looking for some language project that it's medium hard, going through these 10 videos and writing down what they're saying and trying to translate it. Because you could see what they're doing. It gives you a theme. There's a lot of hello, how are you doing, what's your name, I'm a boy, I'm a girl type of stuff that was going on there. But that's a pretty fun way to just sort of engage in the language because we got to find things to just keep trying. And so, like when we're in here, we kind of do stuff and then move on, do stuff, move on. But the hope is everything that we're doing in here, you're out there repeating. Like just do the drill, drill, drill stuff. But also finding new stuff to engage in because sometimes it just gets a little boring if you're just always doing the same types of things. So, yeah, any other thoughts?
One time, I was with a group of women and somebody asked Nora about, how courting and sparking and how you do, and Nora said, oh, you say, good. So maybe not this, but
Right?
this.
You see, it could have been like that. Huh. Have fun. And there's a set of, it's pretty funny because if you go through, we've taken a look now and then at Lear's verb notes. I'll show you what they look like. And so you can get these on tlingitlanguage.com, and there's also a typed up version of it that you can actually go through and do searches for. You can't really do a search, you have to know the verb root here. But the nice thing about this one is sometimes you can just go through and just flip through it and you'll just find a bunch of stuff. Oh, well, there's a verb for that. Hey, there's a verb for this. But one of the key differences between the work that Jeff Lear did and the work that Story and Naish did is Story and Naish were kind of reserved. And so I remember, I guess the way to frame this would be Dick Dallonhauer was talking about the Tlingit Verb Dictionary, which is wonderful, amazing. And he said, well, they got them all. I was like, they didn't get them all. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you can't poop, you can't pee, you can't make more people. And there's ways to say that because we've gotten people to tell us how to say it. And so Carrie's work has a lot of that stuff, and Jeff, it's not like it has all, but that's part of language. You have to talk about everything. Not all the time, but there are certainly times, like you want to raise kids, you can talk about pooping and peeing quite a bit, and so, and then, and so, and then beyond that too, there's lots of, sometimes as he was working with speakers, they would give him these just really amazing phrases that are very cultural things that are in these notes. So if, we're just looking for things to just fill our time. And sometimes having too much can be a little dangerous. But I would say, keep the core stuff of what we're doing as what you probably hopefully focus the most on. But then as you're sort of saying, okay, I need to take a break from this concept that it's driving me crazy, there's lots of other stuff to go and engage in. And there's another one called Little Readings in Tlingit, which we'll look at later. And that one it's amazing. It's by Vesta Dominics. And so looking at the incredible stuff that people have made throughout the years, and not just them, but them working with other speakers and elders, it's just really amazing. And so my hope is we're starting to identify some stuff and figure out, hey, we should reprint this thing and that. There's all these little booklets that are out of print now that have tons of great stuff in them. So we got to start compiling those and then figuring out how to re-release them as, and maybe it's just sort of a collection of them. And so, anyways.
Well, where would be a good place to find out more about who these people were? Because I've heard Naish story here.
Gosh.
Unless you wanted to give us 5 minutes of a very
Yeah, so, well,
summary.
the things I know, and Jock might have some other, she's been working in Tlingit for a while now. So we go back, the work that we rely on the most, the first major contributors, well, there's De Laguna, Frederica De Laguna, who was an anthropologist who did some work primarily in Angoon and Yakutat. And the biggest sort of probably cultural contribution is this 3-volume series called Under Mount St. Elias. And she wrote Tlingit in a way that I think Swanton and some others used to, using a phonetic alphabet, basically, the International Phonetic Alphabet. But she also has tons of these note cards, which we want to scan because it's got a bunch of nouns that we know aren't anywhere else, like specifically tools that a medicine person would use and stuff like that. And then she kept in contact with the communities that she worked in, and she worked right up until she died. You know, she couldn't see. I heard she had a computer, and you'd see like one letter at a time because, you know, she still wanted to keep working. But she took over some work from, inherited some work from this guy Emmons, who was visiting the Tlingit a long time ago, and was and did some stuff, mostly just sort of writing in English. But Swanton and De Laguna and Emmons were the real early folks who were writing stuff, trying to write down what was being said in Tlingit and also making lots of recordings. The De Laguna recordings are very extensive. And then we shift over to Naish and Story, which were two folks in this program called, it eventually, I don't know if it was when they first came, but it eventually became the Summer Institute of Linguistics, which from what I understand is sort of missionization meets language revitalization, like in the early phases. So a lot of their work was
Not revitalization.
not really just document.
Now they.
Huh?
But
Yeah.
at first it was just.
Because that concept didn't.
The Bible, so you will become one of us. And
Right.
Culture, nah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it really wasn't, it was missionization. Like, let's translate the Bible into their language so we can missionize them. And through their work, they also documented a ton. But then that's why when you read the Verb dictionary, you'll see there's just lots of Christian sentences in there, which is great. But because of that, perhaps, they tended to shy away from things like, though, you know, what happens when people get excited and things like that. And there's, you know, you could find them all in this one, but and even today, so like even when we make some things, like I made a book and it wasn't made for like junior high, but because it's going into the junior high, it was requested that I took out a bunch of body parts that might be embarrassing for some people. Yeah, exactly. And so, but I did because there's people who pay for this work, and you're like, fine. I mean, it's just a body part. But, anyways, and then they did quite a bit. They did some recording. They did quite a bit of recording, and then their biggest product was the Tlingit Verb Dictionary, and also the Orange Noun Dictionary, and then. The Dowenhauers and Jeff Lear sort of come along, taking different kind of entry points to working in the language, with Nora and Rosita and a group that went up to Alaska Methodist University, where Richard Dowenhauer was teaching, and then they kind of became a crew, and then came back here, trying to sort of work on his background was more in literature and literature of indigenous peoples and anthropology. But then as they started doing language work, he pursued linguistics. And then Jeff came here he was pretty young from what Nora told me. He was really young, and he was, I think, in Illinois perhaps, and it was just a natural language learner, just a natural linguist probably.
He grew up here.
He grew up here?
Yeah, he was, his father was Dr. Lear. He was a friend of the monks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she said when she first,
He grew up in West Juneau, from what I understand.
and maybe he was like 16 or something when they were living here, because what Nora said, she was cutting fish on a dock, and then someone spoke Tlingit, and she turned around, she saw these boots, and she looked up and here's this 16-year-old Leitra, and she was, and for both Nation Store and for Lear, there was people who had done work in Tlingit, but you could probably count on one hand the number of white people who had learned Tlingit ever. And so there were stories like Nation Store. One of them, they went down to Saxman to do some work, and they knocked on this lady's door, and when she answered, she spoke in Tlingit, and the lady just slammed the door because she thought it was like a ghost or something because white people don't speak Tlingit, right? And then and so for Jeff too, it was just kind of interesting. And then he spent a lot of time with there was some specific elders that he would talk about. I can't remember their names now. But I think they might have been in Huna. And then he ended up going up into the interior and doing a lot of work with inland Tlingit folks. And then he also started working at UAF, and he's worked in Haida, Tlingit, Unanguch, Yupik, Degenog, I think. So he's worked in just a ton of different languages. And then his contributions to Tlingit were probably more getting into the ins and outs of how the grammar worked. But then he was a really great language learner and maybe a natural linguist, but maybe not a great professional linguist. And so sometimes there might be things that the Tlingit language does that there's already a term for that type of thing, but he would sort of make up a term instead of just because he didn't know it. And so now James Crippen is one of the primary linguists, and Seth Cable and Carrie Eggleston. I think Carrie came into the language community first out of those three, and they're kind of structural linguists, so they look at the grammar and concepts and sort of help us figure out things like what's the difference between gwash and kshe, and there's subtle differences, and so but gwash is like maybe not, and kshe is maybe so, if you wanted to sort of translate how those concepts work. And then shakde is just sort of maybe, right? And so you kind of got these shades of doubt, and they sort of come up with exercises on how to tease that stuff out, and then continue to go through. And I think James has been trying to standardize a lot of stuff, so he'd go through what Jeff has and make sure it matches up with what linguistics sort of generally says. And then, and then Jock came, I don't know, when did you start working in Tlingit?
2003.
2003. And you were working with Deghenog at that time too, or later?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so,
And first in Minnesota.
oh,
And
okay.
I don't think it worked with that, but certainly a little bit.
Okay. I just know I found some
Sorry.
storybook, and he was, but yeah, oh, maybe it was Sukhsin. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right, because he can speak Yurtu, right? So he could work in.
Renee,
Dasa?
Linda said, Satuk said to tell you that Jeff Lear was her classmate in elementary school,
Really?
and that he worked with our grandmother, Mary Sarabia. That was one of the speakers that he had worked with.
Sheesh.
Tell about Nash. Constantine Nash. I always knew her as Nash.
Oh,
She worked with George Betts here in Hona.
okay.
Presbyterian in church.
Yeah,
I never heard her speak in Tlingit to them, but she always had them sitting at a round table writing.
wow.
Yeah, I used to be there.
Connie and Jill is what I hear people say who know them pretty well. The last class I had with the Downhowers, we got to have a teleconference with Connie and Jill, and it was just really neat. And they said, first thing, don't ask us to speak any Tlingit because we haven't done it in 30, 40 years, you know. But it was just really neat to talk with them and to also email with them and say, hey, we want to redo this verb dictionary. Are you okay with it? And to get their blessing to go forward and do whatever we want with it was really important. Sheesh.
But Frederica must be in her under Mount St. Elias introduction or something, but I read, and I think it must have been their description of how she got started coming up to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
What she had to go through. If she couldn't get research funding to do her work, she was at Bryn Mawr her whole professional career because she was a woman. So
Wow.
her brother had COVID, had to come up there. And she worked not only with Tlingit, but she went throughout the interior and did a lot of work with several different languages.
I met her at Bryn Mawr. I was at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I don't know how she knew I was there, but she got a hold of me. And I went up there, and it was in West Philly. It was an all-girls school. So it was interesting to meet her. And there were anthropologists that at the University of Pennsylvania that were working extensively with the Northwest Coast and the Shotridge collection.
Wow.
And so I remember it was very different up in Bryn Mawr because it was an elite girls' school, where Philadelphia at the time was, well, it was during the time of the riots.
Wow.
So it was a very different time. It was right, at the end of Vietnam. But then later on in life, I learned more about her and about Underground St. Elias. And her work tied to Emmons, too. And I knew of Nation's story, but I didn't connect it till later because late in life, George Betts of Cock married my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And he and Zuboff were working with the translation of the Bible. He was a Presbyterian minister. And I still remember them talking about them because they always spoke Tlingit. And they were amazed that there were these two great Shawat who spoke Tlingit so well. And I was talking with my Aunt Elsie. Helen Sherry is one of her sisters. And she said, and they spoke without an accent. That's
Wow.
what they said about Nation's story.
Yeah, I know at one point they could speak very well, right? And then Weha, Jeff Lear, is probably the best second language speaker, right? Like we were talking about him, and then there was the Tlingit Clan Conference, and we were hosting it here, and there was a bunch of students who went and volunteered, and one was excited because he said, "I saw Jeff Lear there." I said, "No, I don't think you did." He's like, "No, I did." And then he said he saw this, what he thought was Jeff Lear, and I was like, "Well, what happened?" He's like, "Well, I went up to him and I said, "Gan cheese klein yacht the cut year." And he says, "Thank you so much for all of your work." And he says the guy shook his hand and said, "Language." And I was like, "No." I was like, that wasn't him. I was like, he would have said something that none of us could understand. That's like, so. Okay, well, it's fun. It's fun to reminisce and also to think about who did a lot of the clearing of the path. Like, I don't like to say folks made the path because our ancestors made the path, but they cleared that path, and one of the paths that they cleared was making it okay to go to elders and record them. That's something that Rosita talked about and that Nora talked about, was how much the old people, when they were young, didn't like to be recorded, like to the point where it scared them, it made them nervous, it made them upset. But it did transition to the point where, and Nora talked about that a lot, where her auntie would call her and said, "Your uncle's dying, he wants to be recorded one last time." And so that it did, they facilitated this shift, and then we have folks who came in and did all kinds of recording afterwards. And what they were doing was primarily like large chunks of oratory and stories. And then Jock has this wonderful idea to get conversations, right? Just what is the day-to-day stuff? And so to try and push for more of that so that we could, because we found everybody's trying to learn from, the Tlingit version of what would be Shakespeare. And so when people come to the United States or wherever and you want to teach them English, you'll be like, let's start with Macbeth, right? And so he worked way up to those things. And so it's really we're blessed by all the work. There's hundreds and hundreds of tapes that are out there. Um, there's this document called the Downhauer Finding Guide. I'll put that up on our class website tonight because you can just sort of, one thing that Alaska did in the past 5 years or so was they paid fluent speakers to listen to the tapes, the Downhauer collection especially, and just write down what's on them. And so now there's a document that you can go, like someone was like, hey, I wanted to find that story about the children of the sun, that Shangukedi story. And so we could just, you could do a word search and you could find it. And then if you're a language learner and you want some recording that's there, let me know, and the way that I do that is someone says, hey, there's this recording of this, is if you go to, what I'll do is I'll put it on tlingitlanguage.com, but it'll probably be unlabeled, so you go to audio, just because there might be sensitive things on there. So if you go down towards the bottom, you see things like this. And so that's where someone asks for something. And I don't know if it's for the general public, but if it just says tape 385, and if it's all in Tlingit, then that's encryption maximum, right? So no one's going to hack that. Maybe, I don't know. Some hacker's going to learn Tlingit or something. But if you're looking for stuff to just, because sometimes it's great to just have stuff to listen to. Hey, I wonder what, something that exciting that happened last year was getting, let's see, what's on here somewhere? Right here. This is Jesse Dalton's speech in Hatu Naguyis. And we were really excited because so many people had, Nora loved to just read that speech in public, and a lot of people had recited it as part of sort of oratory projects here at UAS, but nobody knew where the audio was. And then it was tracked down just last year. And so it's right there, and so you can hear.
The library here has the full collection on CD. There's two copies. One's the archival gold, and the other is plain discs. So that's another place you could get these. And there is the finding aid besides the one that SHI did, that Nora did.
Oh, wow.
And it's not for the entire collection because the money ran out. But it was the IT here, media services, Gloria Marion, who digitized the whole collection till the end, but SHI through Edelson had a grant to do the first 125.
Wow.
So then UAS at no cost to anybody that taxpayer tuition did the digitizing of the whole 502 or 20.
Wow.
Tapes.
And if you guys know of folks who have recordings on tape, we've been trying to let folks know that we can digitize here. And so it's sort of a multi-step process, but one thing is the goal here is to just make stuff available to share. So especially if it's language tapes, it's great if, Grandpa had a jazz band, mine did, but we're looking more for like Tlingit language stuff. But if folks have that, we can digitize that for them. What we ask is that they share it with, and then at least let us hold on to it in case something happens to those originals. But especially if it's in Tlingit, we're just running out of people that know what to do with it anymore. Like we've had some intense discussions about what do we do with this stuff, and my preference is to just make it available to everybody who's learning the language. And then to just say, if there's stuff that we think is too sensitive, then we can mark that stuff. But I don't know, because all of this, there's so much knowledge that's getting endangered. I don't really like to put limitations on things. If it's in English, sure. But if it's all in Tlingit, like, I don't know if anybody's learning Tlingit so that they can come and rob us. You know, I have my doubts about that. But I do understand, you know, we also have to make sure we are teaching folks that if you learn this story, which belongs to this clan, you can't go and tell it in public, right? You cannot. Like the Raven story, sure. But if you want to go and sort of tell this particular story, it's like you've got to clear it with that clan first. And so, but I do think we can teach that stuff. When they're saying, you know, take the lid off, I think they're saying take the lid off. And so, but that doesn't mean we're being irresponsible. It means we're making sure that this stuff doesn't get, you know, the old people, they spoke it for a reason, you know, and so it's really fun to, some of those recordings are really, they're a lot of fun to listen to, you know, because you might hear some people.
Recordings of my grandfather Kelly with my youngest daughter, who I named after my grandfather. Until she was 2 years old, I have videos of him speaking to her in Tlingit.
Wow.
And just talking to her. And growing up, my grandpa spoke only Tlingit. He didn't know much English. So I remember understanding some of it, but not all of it. But it was everyday Tlingit. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember where I put some of my videos because it's on VHS. But I have my grandpa speaking Tlingit to my daughter. It was like anytime I could visit him, he was always speaking Tlingit. And then I remember, I wish I recorded, but when his sisters and brothers would come and visit, and they would just sit there and talk and laugh, and they would get really loud, but they would be talking away in Tlingit. And I understood every bits and part, and I always knew when they were talking about me. And then they'd be laughing and we'd talk about the story. Like, I want to try and get it to where I can play it on. I gotta find it. I've moved so many times since.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is, my goal is to sort of make digital copies of things and then to give the originals back, or to say, we'll give you a digital and we could put the originals into an archive, either through the state or through Sealaska. And then that way there's multiple copies of it. And that way it's there for folks to dive into, because maybe someone says, oh, I wonder how, you know, I wonder how people from Huna talk to babies, right? And then there might be some really good stuff in there. And so this is something just to sort of keep getting the word out that it'd be great to sort of centralize some of this stuff and to just share it like crazy, especially within the language community. Like, this isn't really for everybody's consumption, but it's for the language community. I think that should give you the key, because, you know, that's one of the rewards of sticking with it and learning it and using it, is there was a reason people were recording this stuff, and there was a reason people allowed themselves to be recorded. And so then there's some really fun stuff too. Sometimes you get some arguments and stuff, you know, which, you know, it's not always fun, but I remember we're listening to this one and he's telling this story. And then the person who was there helping with the recording, because usually when De Laguna was recording, she had a speaker who would help her so that they could, sometimes they needed to ask questions or do other things. And I think she said, well, this one time I heard the story like this. Does it go like that sometimes? He's like, no, it never goes like that. And so you just like kind of, as we're transcribing, we're like, whoa, she got in trouble, you know. But anyways, we should take a break. I got some things to look at on the chat room. Oh, I guess it's hard to hear some folks. Sorry about that. And then we'll get back into our lessons. So take 7 minutes, and we'll start back up at 1:45. Okay. So I think the batteries died in the microphone. So mine still works because it's plugged in. But I was getting messages about how nobody could hear anybody. So I think that's just what it is until I charge them over the weekend. So we'll just try to, I'll just repeat if you guys have a question. So I didn't have a whole lot of notes, but I did have a couple of things to sort of maybe highlight. One of them I would probably start with is, let's see, Tlingit verbs. When we talk about hearing, this is pretty fun in Tlingit. So you can, there's the ability to hear, which is a little bit different in terms of a different verb than to hear something, which is different than to listen to something, which is different from hearing a person talk or sing, which is different from listening to a person talk or sing, which is different from hearing, understanding somebody. But they all have to do with this same verb root, ach, which has to do with hearing. So the first one we might say is to hear something. And so we'll only look at the perfective first person, because using this as a self. So you'd say, chwa'ach, 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 chwa'ach. That's to hear a sound. I heard this sound, right? Whatever it is. And this could be a person, but this would be like you heard them walking around or bumping. You heard them doing something. Chwa'ach is to I heard it. Okay, and this is a fun one because when I was working with Kachwan Ish, we'll actually later I'll show you how to say like, I heard you speak, you heard me, I heard them, and we're doing a whole bunch of those, sort of setting up these a whole bunch of different variations. And I said, I heard you, and when he gave me the verb, I was like, isn't it isachwa'ach? And he's like, oh yeah, and I said, was that like to herd like animals? And he's like, yeah, like to herd sheep or something. So that's to hear a noise, basically. To say I heard you, or like let's just say I heard his or her, I heard them talk, I heard them sing, I heard their voice. Sachwa'ach, 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 sachwa'ach. So if in the context of a class, especially one that has dead microphones, to say, do you hear me, which, they can't hear you right now, but you'd say, chat, and then you would want the ge at the end. So this is, can you hear me? Chatsiya achge. Chatsiya achge. Chatsiya achge. Chatsiya achge. And this is, what was that, Verizon? Chatsiya achge, right? That guy is like, can you hear me? But he'd say Yesu, which would be now. And then this would be, can y'all hear me? If you wanted to take it a step further, it's up to you. Chatsayi achge. Chatsayi achge. Chatsayi achge. And then the response, I heard you. And this is something, this is also a term of encouragement. But usually like someone who's your clan opposite is up giving this big amazing speech and you wanted to sort of give them some encouragement, you would usually hear them say, Isau tuwa'ach, we heard you, right? And so this is just something that if you look through Hatu Naguyis, you'll see several times where that gets called out, and it's just saying, we heard what you said, you know. But as far as I heard you, Isachwa'ach,
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 Isachwa'ach.
Isachwa'ach.
And so that's to hear a voice, and that's how you hear people.
Since we have this moment when we can't be heard, we're not being negative, but could we? So, can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the question was,
We can't hear you.
we can't hear you.
How
So-
do you know they're asking?
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, the question which those of you probably could not hear. Yeah, so then we see the negative, which would be here, right? So we see here klesh sachwa'ach. So there's a couple things. So klesh is going to come before it. Is going to be there. It's going to be short right here instead of long because the classifier changes. And then the verb is going to go long and low. Klesh is sachwa'ach.
Klesh isachwa'ach.
Klesh is sachwa'ach.
Klesh isachwa'ach.
Klesh is sachwa'ach.
Klesh isachwa'ach.
So that's another good one to, you know, I didn't hear you. Right, I didn't hear, and so that would be like, you know, yeah. So that's to hear the voice. Then there's one more that's, you know, we're not going to focus on like the listening and stuff. We'll do that some other time. But then there's understanding, right? Which is a related verb, but then this is what you're going to get, is you're going to get instead of sa. So what has just happened is, so we go from hua'ach to here, and then we put sa on the front of it, which means voice. Sa on the front of a verb like that means voice. And then we could put on the front. Oops. So we see this part of the verb is the same each time. But what we've done is we've put so we put mouth on the verb. So this is how one way that Tlingit changes verbs. Like this is 3 different verbs. To hear a voice, and to understand. Right? And so there's just subtle variations. Because you could say, can you understand me? Right? Can you understand me? And so this one likes to sort of come out this way, right? To say, it likes to have that CH. You're going to hear that on there quite a bit. But so like is to understand, right? And so you could say, if a speaker says because they're speaking to you in Tlingit, you could say and that's I understand you, right? And then they're going to be really happy because like woo, yay, right? And so let's see. I lost my cough. Okay, well, is I lost, and then cough I think is witzaquk. Okay, we'll look at that one for sure. The other thing that there are just 2 other things that I noticed, and so we use this verb sometimes. So duwasak is she or he is named this or is called that, right? So you say chilkatit, you duwasak. We're going to get the you in front of it. You duwasak, achkla, skandau, you duwasak, ach ish. But then we get to say they used to be called. One of the things is it's real easy to say duwasag and then duwasagen, but it's actually dusagen. The wa part goes away. So that's a real subtle shift. But if you want to use this dusagen to say they used to be called that, but now they have passed away, you need to drop the wa part right in the middle. The last thing is I hear people use this kind of construction a lot because English has it all the time. I have this, I have that, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. You're going to get, and there's gets and haves all over the place. And sometimes we try to bring that into Tlingit. And I don't think it's incorrect at all to say, well, first, if you want to talk about people, so we know Klaik is one. What's two? Deich. And three? Right? But then if we say, how do we say one person? Kleinach. So Kleinach is one person, right? And then Dachnach is two people. And then Nasgi Nach is. And so one is counting people, right? And this is just people. I guess you got like, you're real close with your cats. Sure. I'm fine with it. Your dogs, your mice. I don't know what you got, but I'm fine, but it's usually I don't think it's wrong to use it for animals either. But most people, when they use animals, they'll say like nask stig ya ach wudutlitsig at aya huchkas outliach. 3 black bears destroyed my barbecue grill, which is reality that happened yesterday. I had to try it. They're bouncing on it. What are you gonna do? And so so a lot of times we'll say like, maybe we'll say yetki, right? So you might say, I hear people say things like, nask yetki ach jiwu. And I think that's fine. But if I were to fine tune that a little bit, I would probably say, naski nach away ach yetki. Because I don't have to have them, right? You just say, naski nach away ach yetki. So people number away ach kinship, right? And I think that works. So you could say dachnach away ach hunchuhas. I have two. There's two of them, my older brothers, and so that's the sort of, I would maybe nudge us towards that pattern. So we get the basically number. Away ach kinship. And so that's something that I would sort of maybe make a suggestion towards. So then, natski nach away ach yetki. And so that, because I think the jiwu thing does come from English, but I've heard speakers who say that. So I don't think it's wrong at all. But I just think here's another way to sort of do that. Yeah, so children, so this would be ach yetki. And then you could say dechhankiyan, and so what, and we'll get to those kinship terms. But as far as being able to talk about yourself, that's a big part. People like to say those kinds of things, like I have 2 sisters, and I have an older brother, and then I have 3 younger brothers. And then there's ways that you can just keep doing that. But then if you keep saying ach jiwu, aweh, the kinship term is probably just a more straightforward, faster way. Okay, and then, so let me finish this one. So, there was a question. Is I lost it. And then we were trying to find a cough. And then we'll just do weather. We have one of those things like that little squirrel, but we'll do him later. Let's see if I can find cough. iskuku. Yeah, so there's a verb, that's fun. Yeah, right. If you have a cough, it's like so hard to say, so mean. Yeah, so I'd probably say maybe this one. Ach iskuku, which is that's a pretty long thing to say. I lost my cough. Okay, so let's get to the weather. So the first thing, I don't think we did this one. So each of these chapters in the beginning Tlingit workbook starts with these just little language gems that are out there. This one is a really fun one. Yashingit ane wushjin tushat yesu. In this world, we're still holding each other's hands. And there's some really fun things in here. So ya is this. Shingit ani is the world. It's interesting because Tlingit ani is Tlingit land. Shingit ani, once you put that in there in the middle, that's the world, right? I've been kind of using it with my kids to say planets, like Chaku Tlingit ani. I don't know. We got to have like a little word committee meeting. Qeigh. This is a really fun part because in Tlingit there's different ways to be on the world. And I don't know if there's like a real difference or if this is just how speakers like to use them. So I'll hear Tlingit ani ka, on the world. Ka is on, right? Tlingit ani ka, long and high. I'll hear Tlingit ani tukwani, which translates to people of the world, but tu means inside. So I'm like, oh, there. Are we inside the world? And this one, Tlingit ani qeigh. So this qeigh, underline G-E-I, it means like between the folds of something. And this is why the Tlingit word for a bay, like a body of water, is qeigh. For southern Tlingits, it's qi. And maybe for folks in Tussin, I'm not sure about that one. So qeigh. So this is like in the area between maybe the raised edges, because this qeigh, if something's in a fenced yard, that's considered qeigh. Tlaqeyi is your brain, and qeigh, it's between the folds of something. There's another place, jiqeigh is this part of your body right here. So jih is your arm, so in the folds of the arm, jiqeigh. And it also means to be in somebody's embrace. So in the world, whoosh, jin, to each other's hands. Tushat, grasping and holding. It could mean we're imprisoning, we're catching. It could mean any of those things. And then yesu. It could mean right now, or it could mean still at this time. It just kind of depends on how it's used. I think a yesu, tushat would mean like he grabbed it right now. But tushat yesu would mean, or we're still holding on to it. Right? So it's this action that is still going on. In this world, we're still holding each other's hands. Right? It's beautiful stuff. Okay, so we'll move a little quick through the parts that we've already done, but just to review. Wasakuati.
Wasakuati.
And in Sitka, wasakuyati.
Wasakuyati.
Kuwake.
Kuwake.
Kuyake.
Kuyake.
Audigan.
Audigan.
And those old Yakutat speakers, Udigan.
Udigan.
For cloudy, Kushagoose.
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 Hot weather, Kuwata.
Kuwata.
Kuyata.
Kuyata.
Cold weather, Kusiat. Kusaat. And then a ge. And so this ge part, we're just going to keep an eye on it because we'll see that it goes in different places. One of the tendencies of us as second language learners is to put it at the end of everything, just because that's how English sort of constructs questions. But we'll see it. The logic is it comes after the thing that's being asked. Wherever the focus is on what's being asked, that's where it goes. And for some of them, it could go in a couple different areas. There's others where it prefers to go in one particular spot. But once you start with the verb, it kind of depends. And then we get yes and no. Click. And then really. So this could go before any verb. To be like really verb, right? Kunach. Kunach. Kunach yak Kunachat with the wet. I'm really tired, right? And then this one is too much. Kudach. Kudach. Or kutch. Kutch. Like kutch ayanaha is the word for stars. And it's like they move so much that you can't count them. That's kind of what it means. And then we've got the basic sort of sentence for it's precipitating, or it did. Da kusatan. Gleit da kusatan. Siu da kusatan. Kadats da kusatan. Kaklahin da kusatan. Kasechcha da kusatan. Kudagwas. Oh, I'll give you guys a bonus one. There's this one, like when it starts to snow, which it's going to before too long. A lot of times when it snows, the first few snows of the year, sometimes you get these really big flakes that melt as soon as they hit the ground. And there's a name for those guys, which is this. Nuktatli. Nuktatli. Is anybody familiar with either of those? Those mean something. It means something else too. Anybody know what nukt is?
Grouse, but this might be a ptarmigan.
No, this is a grouse, right? So that's a blue grouse or a hooter, whatever. And yes, grouse poop, right? Grouse shit. That's the name for those big flakes. I don't know why, but I know, somebody told me, and they were laughing when they said it. They said that's what we call those ones, those big flakes. So you could say nukt hotly da kusatan. And then you'll also learn there's like fine snow, and there's a whole bunch of other things. And so, but then you can just get the da kusatan on there as well. Okay, so we got foggy, stormy or windy, ayaudati. And then there's another, like if you're out on the water and it gets really rough, the weather gets really rough, they usually call that ilja. So it's a little bit different than this. But it seems, that's the way it seems to be used, but ayaudati would probably work out there too.
How do you spell the one on the water?
I think it's K''EELJ high-toned AA. Let me check my spelling. Right there. Ha! Ishja. There it is. And then for it to be snowing, like really heavy, like a blizzard type of thing, Ayakawa done. Ayakawa done. Bad weather. Keshkushke. keshkushke. And then to be like stormbound, like you're weathered in, socked in. Chat yawasik. Chat yawasik. Chat yawasik. And then we saw that's an object pronoun. So you could say yawasik, ha yawasik, ye yawasik, yawasik, hus yawasik. Right? And so there's this list of object pronouns we're going to keep sort of just bringing up now and then. And same with this, it's a little box because I couldn't find a safe picture of I'm wet. That was like not a smart thing to do an internet search for. Chat with the tuck. Chat with the tuck. Chat with the tuck. But then when you get to these third person things, like the third person would also be my shoes. Achtishi away with the tuck. So there's achtishi away with the tuck. Kate with the tuck. Right? And so all those things are all third persons, which is why we that's kind of where we start when we start really looking at verbs. I'll say grab the third person because you could use that for a whole bunch of stuff. But then same thing, chet with the tuck, ew the tuck, how the tuck, hus with the tuck, with the tuck, you the tuck. Okay. And then someone says they're all wet. Yishan. Yishan. Poor thing. That could be teasing, but that could also be really serious. Someone's got bad news, Just depends on context and the tone of your voice. So now we're going to get into a few time references. So just generally saying the time reference is like now or nowadays. Yidat. 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 So when you hear some of the old timers telling stories, they'll sometimes say Yidat Tlingit. And how do you think that translates? The Tlingits of today, right? And so, like in the story, he said, "Kaja yedu sago at yidat Tlingit kashas awas kuda so kaja." And Nora said, "Well, what is it?" Because he says it's called kaja, but the people of today, the Tlingits of today, don't know what kaja is. And so Nora says, "What is it?" And I said, "I'm a Tlingit of today, so I don't know." And it's a kelp island. Right? And so it can be used to talk about, like, it could be used as basically to modify a noun, to just say the noun of today. Yidat hit, modern day house, right? Yidat whatever, yidat yak. And so that's how it works. And it could also be used to just talk about, right now. Yidat qo'a. Now, though, so I could say, like, siu dak wusatan tatke. It was raining yesterday. Yidat qo'a. Siu dak nastan. It's raining yesterday. I tease, and like, we are in Juneau, so I'm just going to teach the rain verbs. But you can say it was like this yesterday, but now it's like this, right? And so we're going to learn how to do those sort of constructions. So today, yayaki, 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 yayaki. And if you're from the inland, you'd probably say yagi, right? So Y-A-G-E-E. And other people say yagayi. So there's 3 different ways to say that, depending on either where you're from or where you learned it. So with some of these variation things, just if we learn it one way and your people say it a different way, go with how your people say it. It's just making these little adjustments, right? But yayagi means today, right? So when you put those together, because yagi on its own, yagi, yakyi, means day, just like a day. And so you could say dech. I guess we didn't did we do time stuff in here yet? Like days of the week and stuff like that?
No.
Okay. we'll do some of that on Tuesday. Tuesday we'll do months, because there's things that you can do when you look at the classes in Hawaii, whether it's preschool or college. One thing that they do is everybody takes turns and they just say what day of the week it is, what month it is, what day of the month it is, what the weather's like, and what the moon phase is doing, right? So I don't know if we'll do the moon phase one, but we could do those others. And so we're going to learn how to talk about, it's the dis yadi, or disclaim ye do a sock way dis. Jinkat katkaki yawachi yadis. Yayaki siu daku satan kakushagus. Right? So it's disclaim. 11 days have passed this month. It was raining today and cloudy. Yesterday, tatke, 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 tatke. So we go tatke, yayaki, tatke, yayaki, tatke, yayaki. And so these are ones that I think some people gets a little confusing, the yesterday, the today, the tomorrow. So we're going to practice those ones, and then we'll also look at like months and days and stuff like that. So then you could say and, ka, 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 ka. So like we learned how to say achjiwu, so you could say, kuhida ka gucha achjiwu. I have a kuhida and a gucha. You could say yayagi siudak wusatan ka kushaguz. Today it was raining and cloudy. Right? And then at the end you could also say so, 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 so. So there's two of these. There's a tsu with a low tone that comes before a verb. So if it's low tone and comes before a verb, it means verbed again. If it's high tone and comes at the end of a noun or a set of nouns, or maybe at the end of a phrase, it means this also. So they're pretty similar, but they are different. So when we'll say, su ye yanaka, say it again. So there's that low tone su before the verb, right? You could say suhadika kwagut. I'm going to come back here again, right? And then you could say tsu, khatsu, right? So like if you're somewhere and they're giving out something delicious and you didn't get one, chatsu, like me too, right? And chatsu, that could be the name of the movement, right? So chatsu, me too. Tsu is also, right? So that's how it works. We'll keep our eye out for it. Okay. Anybody want to try to say what the weather was today?
We're all mute.
Oh, never mind. I'll just say it. Sorry. You have no voice. So you could so here's the yayaki. So we could say, yeah, let's kushagus yayaki.
Kushagus yayaki.
Kushagus yayaki.
Kushagus yayaki.
Kushagus yayaki.
Kushagus yayaki.
Oh, if I can. Audagon tutke.
Audigan tatke.
Audagon tutke.
Audigan tatke.
I think it was so. Siudak wusatan tutke.
Siudak wusatan tatke.
So that's how you put the time reference on there. Right? So step one is we learn you could say the sort of the when part, right? Because you could also say yidat, same thing. So you could say, well, it's nighttime, it gets hard to tell. But you could say kushagus yidat.
Kushagus yidat.
Kushagus yidat.
Kushagus yidat.
And then we could start putting these together. So here we could say it was, we'll just do rain because I'll tell you in a second. Not just because it rains all the time, I'm not complaining. Or let me show you my Tlingit weather thing really quick. I know it's a real thing though, that some people get really upset by the weather. Or like the weather sort of helps determine what their mood is going to be. But then, so I made this thing, Katu yati kakuti, people's feelings and weather. And so I had kakusti, like crying when it's raining and smiling when it's sunshine, and then Tlingit kusti, which is just frowning all the time. But it's just a joke. It's just my little, it's making fun of two things at the same time. But going back, but we're going to pick raining because actually when you say wusatan, it would be wusatan. It could work for now and it could work for yesterday as well. They're not all like that. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why. But part of it is Tlingit time is not the most important thing for Tlingit. Right, it's just whether or not the thing has happened or not. So we'll say this in two parts. Siu dak wusatan tatke.
Siu dak wusatan tatke.
Kaya yagit su siu dak wusatan.
Kaya yagit su siu dak wusatan.
Siu dak wusatan tatke.
Siu dak wusatan tatke.
Kaya yagit su siu dak wusatan. And so, but one of the comments I'd have about this pattern, it's good to learn this pattern. But then, like if you're learning a language, you might say, it was raining yesterday and it is raining today too. But people don't talk like that, right? Maybe the robots do. But you'll say, it was raining yesterday and today too, right? So you could say, siu daku satan tatke. Kaya kitsu. We already know what the tsu is referring to, right? So this is one where there might be, as far as looking at natural language, one extra step in the pattern. The reason why you might sort of have this pattern is if you had, however, it's different today, right? But before we get to that, we're going to start looking at how to put some things into what we call the perfective. The perfective means it has already happened, right? And so sometimes it does refer to, at different times, because you can have kudzati for something to exist, but when you put that verb into the perfective, you say kudzati, and it means it was born. So sometimes it changes the meaning. But then we're going to get into some of these terms, perfective, imperfective, and they're kind of from the field of linguistics. But all it's saying, when we say perfective, it means we're looking at this in terms of whether or not it has happened. And depending on the verb, it might push it into sort of like this other sort of previous time, right? So when we said, how is the weather? We say, wasa kuwati. But when we say, how was the weather? We say, wasa kuwati. Right? Wasa kuwati. Wasa kuwati. So now we're kind of, and so it's the same thing. How is it? So if I want to say, how is, let's say we're talking on the phone, you're at a ku'ik, and you stepped outside to take a little break and you gave me a call. I might say, wasa yati we ku'ik. How is the ku'ik? So wasayati, same thing. You see the when iyati, how are you? Wasaiyati. Wasayati we ku'ik. How is it? Wasayati iish. How's your dad doing? Wasayati we wushkanachutu da'ati. How's the meaning? But then I could say wasa wuti. How was it? So there are ones that sort of imply that the thing is over now. And that's what's going on here. Quwwati would be it was that way. How was that thing, right? So we had quwwak, but now we see what's happening with these is they're getting long, right? So this one, it got long, quwwati. This one gets long as well, right? So you say quwwak,
Kuwak-e.
quwwak,
Kuwak-e.
quwwak.
Kuwak-e.
Oh, nobody said day away. We're out of time. So
Uh,
I will get you guys a list of pairings. This is the person that you'll touch base with over email, and then you guys could share information and come up with a plan. You do have about 10 days to just get a short dialogue ready. So try not to stress about it at all. It's just for us to just try a different thing in the language. Tuesday we'll keep going through this weather chapter, but the weather, it might be something we move through kind of quickly and then come back to, because we're starting to change the verbs into these different modes, and there's actually a lot that's going on to do that. And then I'll send out a draft of the total word list over the weekend. Let me know if your words aren't on there, or if you want to sort of have a dialogue about maybe you want to change a few things. Whatever works for you. Yak echawe gunchi shuhan, wushekach tustin